Hello and welcome back to my channel. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe if you'd like to see more videos. There are loads of helpful videos on this channel. I have for you what I read in August, and oh my goodness, what a month of reading. Somehow I got absolutely loads done. I genuinely don't know how, but a lot of the books that I read were really easy, kind of whiz through books or couldn't put them down books. So, you know, brilliant summer of reading. So the first book that I read this month is called A Year of Marvellous Ways by Sarah Winman, and a friend lent me this because I'd read Tin Man by Sarah Winman and thought I might enjoy it. She hadn't read it first. It's a bit of an odd book, I'll be honest. Let me tell you what it's about. It's about an old lady called Marvellous Ways, which is probably the most epic name I've ever heard. And she lives by a creek in kind of this very remote part of Cornwall. And this guy Francis, a young ex-soldier, comes into her life who's kind of washed up on the shore, bedraggled, not got any hope, doesn't want to live particularly. And she kind of nurses him back to health and gives him reason to live. And it's a very nice story. There's a lot of history in it. There's a lot of past. It was quite a slow story. I found it relatively hard to get going, and I just found it a bit odd. But yeah, it has a good message underneath it. There's nothing particularly bad about it, so I wouldn't read it again, but I wouldn't say don't read it, if that makes sense. And from that slightly slow start, I went straight into The Subtle Knife by Philip Pullman. I read Northern Lights probably a few months ago now, and this is the second in the trilogy. And it is incredible. So you join Lyra in this kind of, you know, at the end of Northern Lights, she's just disappeared off into this kind of new world. So you join Lyra in this new world, and there is also this character called Will who has a great backstory. His life has been a bit odd. His dad went missing when he was younger. His mum often has people kind of stalking her, and she's not completely there. So he leaves her with somebody and goes off to try and find his dad, to try and kind of fix things basically. And he meets Lyra, and they just have the most spine-tingling adventure, this kind of magical adventure, and it's amazing. It leaves you kind of desperate to know what happens next, to the point that you just can't put it down, so you just have to keep reading it. And when you're not reading it, you're thinking about it. And I'm really reluctant to start the third of the trilogy, because then I know it will be over. I don't know if anyone else does that, just puts off reading something because they know it's going to be amazing. Because once you've finished it, you can never go back to that not knowing what that book was about. So yeah, I'm kind of holding off on that. I might hold off for a few months. In fact, I might save it till Christmas. That might be a good time for it. But this is just brilliant. If you've read Northern Lights, then it's the perfect next one, because obviously it's the second in the trilogy. If you haven't read any of this trilogy, go read it now. I'm also reading with my son at the moment The Book of Dust, which comes as a prequel to the trilogy, and it's really interesting to read that with him too. The third book I read is called The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas, and this book I've seen a lot of people reading on social media and kind of doing pictures about, and you know how influenced I am, so I had to buy it. And it is an incredible book. It is about race, about class, about differences between the two, about never quite feeling like you can be you because you don't quite fit into any specific one of those things. It's about a girl called Star who lives in a very poor neighbourhood. There's a lot of violence, there's a lot of gang crime, but it's where she's been brought up. She loves that area, but she doesn't go to a school there. She goes to a posh school in which she is the minority. So she is with her friend Khalil, and Khalil is a friend from her childhood. She's known him since she was tiny. He has kind of crossed into her other life in school, but she very much keeps these lives separate. So she's at a party and Khalil is there, and they drive off, and Khalil is shot and killed by a policeman. And the story is about trying to get justice for Khalil and the kind of bias that there is against people of colour who might be in a car, and the chances of them being stopped and the chances of being shot as well, and about the lengths that Star goes to try and get this kind of story out there so that people hear the truth. And it's just an incredibly emotive book. I would definitely recommend that all of you read it. The fourth book I read this month is called Together by Julie Cohen. This was the Bookish Mamas Book Club read for August, and I'll leave a link below as ever to the Facebook group if you want to come and join in. And this book is about a couple called Robbie and Emily, and they've been together for a very, very long time. And it's clear from the very beginning of the book that they have a secret. And you don't know what this secret is, obviously, it's a secret. And it's a love story, and it's quite a nice love story. They have not particularly been good people in their lives, which is quite hard. You know, when you get characters who you want to like, but they haven't behaved in a way that makes you like them. That's kind of what both of these characters are like. So, for example, they adopted their son, but they did it in a way that wasn't necessarily legal, and they never owned up to that. They just carried on as they were, and that doesn't sit quite right with me. The end of the book left me feeling incredibly uncomfortable, and that was a bit odd. I don't know what else to say about that. It was not the ending I was expecting, not the kind of revelation that I was expecting, but I felt a bit uncomfortable and a little bit dirty when I finished reading it. So it was really well written. I enjoyed most of the story. Some of it I found quite hard to read, but largely I enjoyed it. So it was a really interesting one because, like I say, I hadn't seen any of what happened coming, so I can't be any more obvious about it because I don't want to give any spoilers away, so I'm sorry for being really cryptic with that one. The fifth book I read this month is called Fierce, and this is part of the Mumsnet book club, and this story is by Gin Phillips. It used to be called Fierce Kingdom. I don't know why they've changed the name of the book, but when I've searched for it on like Goodreads, it's down there as Fierce Kingdom. This is a story about a mum called Joan and her 4-year-old son Lincoln, and they find themselves in the most horrific situation. They're at the zoo, just sort of at closing time, in like this shaded woody area, just playing, and they hear this kind of disturbing noise, and it turns out that it is a gunman, or more than one gunman, and they are basically running rampage around the zoo. So Joan has to go into kind of fight or flight mode, and obviously she wants to protect her son. She doesn't want to be shot. She racks her brain and remembers that there is an animal enclosure which is not being used at the moment. So they make their way to that enclosure, and obviously her son is young. She's having to keep him quiet. She's having to make sure he stays calm and doesn't scream and doesn't shout. And as a parent, it's ridiculously hard to imagine that your child would be that quiet in any situation that was scary like that. And obviously she's done the right thing in going to this enclosure to hide, but then her son Lincoln gets hungry, so they leave the enclosure, and this is when the story kind of unravels and becomes really intense. I made the mistake of starting this book when I went to bed, and this book is intense. From like the second you're into this book, you are like this. And when I kind of like read it for about half an hour, and then I was just like this. I totally couldn't chill out at all because I was just, my adrenaline was going. I was concerned for this woman. It was really difficult to get back into like calm time for sleep having read the beginning of this. I'm not going to give too much weight because I could do. It's a really difficult read. You are introduced to more characters throughout the book. The pace of the book slows in the middle, which I don't think is a bad thing because it's quite a frenetic pace at the beginning. But I really enjoyed it, and enjoyed probably isn't the right word. It was a good book to read, and a book that can make your adrenaline go like that. That's, you know, that's a skill, to make someone's adrenaline pump through their body because they're so concerned about what's going to happen to the characters. That is very impressive. The final book this month, and yes, I did read 6 books this month. Who am I? is The Light Between Oceans by M.L. Stedman. This has been on my to-be-read pile possibly since Christmas, so the fact that I finally got to read it, I was just like, yeah. This book is a very good book. It follows the story of a lighthouse keeper who is another former soldier, so there's clearly like a theme in these books. It's a former soldier who turns to being a lighthouse keeper, and he falls in love with a local girl called Izzy. He has definitely got post-traumatic stress. He's seen things, he's done things that he 100% regrets, and he doesn't quite know who he is. He likes managing the lighthouse because it's in the middle of nowhere. He has complete solitude. He can just be with himself, think about things, think about the past. And then when he's with his wife, Izzy, she moves to the lighthouse too. And this is when the story kind of really gets going. So they move in together after they've been married, and they try to have a baby. Izzy gets pregnant very quickly, but sadly miscarries, and this carries on happening. She carries on miscarrying, and on the final miscarriage, she is quite a long way along in the pregnancy, and the baby is stillborn. So she's gone through this horrific kind of traumatic, really, really difficult time. And then this boat is washed upon the shore with a dead man on it and a baby. Because they work out in their kind of illogical state of having just lost a baby that no mother in their right mind would let their baby go out on a boat. So the mother must have been thrown aboard and died. And so the story begins with this deception, basically. And Izzy is incredibly happy as a mother. It really suits her, she blossoms. But Tom, although he absolutely loves this baby, he really struggles with the morality of having taken this baby that wasn't theirs, that they don't actually know the history of. And as the book goes along, you find out whose the baby is. It brings up this huge conundrum of whether they should be telling the truth. They realise, oh, I can't give too much away. Anyway, it's a really tricky situation, and you are really torn because these people have brought up this baby to being kind of age 4. So this baby only knows them as parents, not her real parents. So it's a really difficult situation, and you are torn because you see how much this baby has changed these people and made their lives better, and yet you see how it's also torn apart someone else's life. So it's really, really difficult one to kind of grapple with in your mind as to which is morally right or wrong for the child. You know, you don't know what is the right thing to do. I enjoyed this book. It was a good read. Again, it made me feel slightly uncomfortable at times, just with decisions that are made when people are making the wrong decision so obviously. That sits not quite right with me. But I really, really enjoyed the book, so I'd recommend that you read this one too. And that is it. 6 books this month. I don't even know who I am. I don't know who they replaced me with. I don't know why I had time to read. I guess the kids were away for a week in August, which gave me some time to actually sit back and read. But other than that, I don't think I've had any more time than normal. In fact, I think I've had less time, but clearly I've just been using my time more wisely and making sure I have read in the time that I have. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, give us a thumbs up. If you'd like to, please subscribe. Let me know what you're reading at the moment. If you're still watching, I have a very special giveaway over on my Instagram, which is going live, I think tonight, maybe tomorrow. So it'll be live, hopefully, when you're watching this. Head on over to my Instagram, link is below in the description box if you would like to win a selection of amazing books. What are you waiting for? Get on over there. I will see you again soon. All right, bye.